Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be modifying my Initial D Evo using, you guessed it, spray paint. Now I know there's some of you out there right now who are probably just losing your mind, yelling at the screen. No, God! Wondering why I would possibly be wanting to ruin perfectly good Lego bricks with paint. Why I would be using paint at all. And there's a couple good reasons for that. Let me start with this one right here. So, originally, back in the day, I grew up not only building Lego, but I built model cars like this one. And kits like this from like AMT, Tamiya, Revell, they all came, pretty much just white plastic, and you had to pick the color yourself. So I got very used to using like acrylics and paints to modify cars like that to my taste. So when I got into custom Lego building, there were sometimes I would find that I couldn't get colors I wanted. I couldn't get enough parts in the certain colors that I wanted. So I've been having to find creative workarounds to make some of my models the way I want them to be. So when I really got into custom Lego model building, I was running into all kinds of issues where I couldn't get certain pieces in certain colors. Certain colors were available in certain pieces, but other pieces weren't. And I really wanted to achieve a certain look with a lot of my cars. So I got to looking at a lot of these, and Lego is plastic just like a model kit would be. And I was like, well, really, what is the difference? I mean, plastic. If I can modify this with paint, why can't I modify these in the same way to achieve the look I want? And I started kind of small. At first, I was just modifying little things, like the wheel centers, for example. I was just taking hubcaps, like just out of a generic Lego kit, and I was just spray painting the centers the colors I wanted. And that kind of transitioned into doing full-blown cars. And let me show you a few examples. Let's take Iketani's S13, for example. This particular color green, it's very close to a sand green that you can get through an actual Lego brick, but as you probably are well aware, there are certain pieces that are not available in that color. So I really wanted to make this model because it's such a staple of the Initial D builds that I wanted to do. And so this was my first real test with spray paint. So what I did was I built this model out of white, and then I deconstructed the model and then painted the bricks in large chunks to be the color I wanted. And I had such a good success with this that I've decided to continue with this, and I've done it on several models since, models like the Devil Z here. As you can see, this is a much darker shade of the blue than what Lego usually offers. It also has a nice metallic sheen to it, and it really captures the essence of the S30C that I was wanting to get through my builds. So if you're thinking to yourself, this might be something you want to try on some of your models, let me give you a couple of tips that I've learned through painting a few of my various models and what you can take away to give you the best results. So if you're going to try this technique out for yourself, there's a couple things you should keep in mind. The first is going to be, if you're going to try and paint an entire car like this one here, use the same color underneath, so the same color base layer brick for all the areas that are going to be painted. That way you can ensure that the paint is going to look even throughout the entire process once the paint dries. For example, if you used white, say, on most of it, and then say like a light bluish gray on the fenders or something like that, the paint could dry darker in those areas, or that gray could potentially bleed through on a lighter color like this. So white is always going to be your best option if you're shooting light colors. Let's move on to today's project, which is this Evo, of course. Now, in the anime series, this car is black, and it was supposed to be black, but when I ordered the parts for this, I accidentally clicked dark bluish gray on Bricklink when I was coding my XML file together, and this is what showed up. So I went ahead and built it anyway, and I could just as easily go back and order black bricks. They are readily available for this model, and it wouldn't be a problem. But this has given me a chance to kind of experiment a little bit. So this is a metallic based paint, so I'm going to see what kind of variation I can get against regular black pieces and see if I can make the windows offset a little bit, kind of give the windows more matte finish and the exterior of the car a little bit of a gloss finish, so that can kind of help help those elements come forward and not get lost in the build rather than look like just black elements that maybe would blend in to the actual bodywork. So I'm just trying to get a little variance here is my goal. So one of the first things I need to do when I am getting ready to prep this for paint is I need to take out as many elements as I can from the actual car itself that I do not want painted in black. So that's going to be things like my seats, and I'm going to be taking apart part of the windows as well, because I don't want these to get painted that glossy color black. So I'm going to set those aside like this. Over here I've taken out the back window, and I've taken out one of my grill elements, and I'm going to also take the wheels off at this time. So I'm going to take the wheels off, take the wheel pin connectors out as well, set these off to the side. Take all 4 out here. I think I'm even going to take the exhaust off, so leave that a little bit of a matte color too. So the more things you can kind of take off and separate from the actual model, the more variance you're going to have and the more realistic this build will look when it's done. So it'll look more like an actual factory finished piece rather than something you painted and customized. I'm going to take the steering wheel out, I think, too. You know, why not? And we'll take these interior blocks out. Give it a good variance. The nice thing about this model in particular is I don't really have to worry about it masking off as much as certain other cars, because black is going to hide a lot more, and plus a lot of my interior details are black, so black on black, it's really one of the easiest cars to start with. I'm also going to start taking apart my taillight housing, because I don't want the red and I don't want to mask these. So things I don't want to mask, I'm going to take apart. And sometimes this isn't always possible, and sometimes you're forced to mask, which, you know, it is what it is if you have to do that. Go ahead and pop the other one out. All right. Perfect. And got to remember how I just did that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to reassemble these housings back on the model so I can spray one even coat. And the more you can reassemble at one time and shoot it once, the better. That way you're not trying to overload certain elements with paint, and the more even your finish is going to turn out. So we've got the rear end. Also, you need to carefully pry out this decal. So I need to take, because I'd already applied decals to this car because I was trying to get this ready for a certain shoot. Really careful. I want it to be able to re-stick back to the model once it's done. And we're going to set that over here. So that's ready. So the rear end is 100% ready to go. Now let's focus on the front end. So it involves taking off a couple pieces. Pop those lights out. Pop that front off. Front lights come off like so. And we'll reassemble the front end, because we can always take these parts back off once they're painted, because we know where they're going to go. But like I said, the more loose elements you have when you're painting your model, the greater chance that you might overload a few pieces with paint, or there might be paint variances, and you want to have the cleanest looking finish possible. So the more complete you can actually shoot the car, the better. Alright. You know what I might try? I might try, I'm going to also take this grill off here. Okay, pried that out. And I'm going to pry that center off. Perfect. Move them over there. Reassemble those pieces so I can have a few more matte areas. I think that's going to look really nice once it's done. So we'll pry that area off. Okay. All right. Last little bit there. I'm going to reassemble those two pieces. And reassemble my front end. Just like that. And there you go. Now the front end has been taken apart and reassembled as intact as possible. Now one other thing you'll probably have to do if you're not wanting to paint the underside is you'll want to mask everything off too. For this one, I kind of want to keep this little bit of yellow in this car, just because I kind of like the contrasting look. It gives it kind of like a Coney yellow shock look. So I'm going to work on masking that off right now. What you'll need is a good set of masking tape and a sharp hobby knife. So I'm going to just kind of estimate what I need here and work on covering the area completely. I think I need just a little bit bigger. Now I know this is kind of an inconsequential area here because obviously once the wheels are back on, you'll never see this area. So I mean, it's kind of up to your own discretion how crazy you want to get with the masking. That is completely up to you. It's your project that you're doing. So I'm going to just tuck with the hobby knife right in. And I'm also going to cut off any extra I don't need right here. It's going to allow me to just press that masking tape where I want it. I'm just going to fold it back up. Cut off the excess right here. Perfect. There you go. So that's that area, that wheel well masked off. So let me go ahead and quickly tape the rest of these areas. I might actually be able to get away with this smaller one. You know, waste not. Oh, honestly, that couldn't actually fit in there any more perfect if I tried. Sometimes you just get lucky like that. All right, let's go ahead and cut off that little bit of extra there. Perfect. Create our little line here. This is where a good sharp hobby knife comes in really handy, because then it just means you just have to make the slightest little cut and you're ready to go. So let's go over here to this side. You know, and this whole process is all about experimentation, you know. Obviously, you're doing things that aren't conventional, so a little trial and error is always going to be a part of this process. Now, one thing to consider if you are wanting to venture into this does make your modifications to your model pretty permanent, so you better be pretty in love with the thing you're building. I will say that, because there is no going back once it's painted. Which, in this case, I don't plan to disassemble this model. So that's just fine with me. But if I wanted to take this apart someday and maybe recreate something else, paint is probably not the best avenue for that. Alright, cut that one off. One more piece. One more little piece. You can see how fast this goes. Like once you get into knowing where you want to mask everything off, everything just starts to fall into place here really nicely. Alright. Make one more incision there. And you don't need to feel like you need to rush. There's no hurry with any of this. Just do it at your own pace. And actually, the more time you take to do this, probably the better result you'll end up with. So no need to rush anything. Obviously, I tend to want to get this done a little bit quicker just because I don't want to make you guys sit through an 1.5 hour long video of me just masking stuff off. But that's me. You can take your time. All right. So there we have it. This model is officially ready to get painted. I have everything masked off that I want. I have everything disassembled that I want. So we have 1 car to shoot and 3 spare little extra pieces for the roof that I'm going to have to paint as well, which is not a big deal. Actually, that is pretty darn good, all things considered here. So let's go ahead. We're going to go out to the garage now. We're going to get this set up to paint, and we're going to shoot some color. So let's head on out. Okay, as you can see, we're set up to go out here in the garage now. I've made sure to carefully Dexter Laboratory my workbench here so I don't get any overspray on any of my tools or anything like that. And you want to make sure you keep your workspace nice and clean, so this is also going to prevent any debris from getting into the actual paintwork. So we're going to start by painting the bottom side first. That way we can coat all of the areas underneath, and then we can focus on getting a good finish on the top layer. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start. I've got the camera plenty back so I don't get any overspray. I'm going to hold my sleeves up here. I'm going to take the can up nice and good. Get that can all agitated. We're going to do a test spray. Now we're going to lightly mist over. They look like they got a decent layer of paint, so we're going to go ahead and start. Making sure you periodically agitate that can. Throw some color down into the wheel wells. Focusing on nice even strokes. And the nice part, I've got this elevated on a paint lid, so I can sit there and turn the model just like that. Don't have to worry about getting my fingers in the paint. Already got a nice base color going here. So making sure you work yourself around the model. Making sure you're getting into all those nooks and crannies. There's a lot of surface area on these models, so it's easy to miss a few layers. So do your diligence. Make sure you're looking over everything as you're doing it. Oh, that's looking really nice. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to flip that over. Get those mirrors positioned right where I want them. Okay. Now, so now we've got it on the top. I'm going to flip these pieces over. These are your primary pieces that are going to show, so this is where you want to really take your time. Get those nice even coats. Make sure your sides of your pieces are coated. Nothing worse than getting all the way through and finding out just one little speck didn't get painted. Alright. Throw that side color down. Prop this up just a little bit. Hinge pieces. Typically where you'll run into some issue. If you have to turn elements, sometimes that can crack paint, so you want to be kind of conscientious of where you're spraying. Awesome, that looks really pretty good. Make it look just like she would have come from the factory this way. And after a little bit of reassembly, Kiichi Sudo now is sporting a proper black Evo. I think the finish came out really nice on this. I love how the accents now really stand out with that black paint. And I even love how you can really tell the difference between the actual Lego color black and the metallic black that we just shot here. So you can definitely tell that the official Lego black has more of a matte finish to it. But overall, I think this car came out really beautifully. And it looks 100% like it could have been built that way. It's going to be a nice addition to sit next to my spray painted S13. So if you guys have any questions, make sure you comment down below. I'll try and answer as many as I can. And we'll just plan on seeing you guys in the next video.